In history, the greatest dangers were never the ones that arrived with noise. They were never the ones that shook the ground the moment they appeared. The real dangers, the ones that changed nations, destroyed empires, and reshaped economies. They always came silently, quietly, patiently, moving through the shadows while the world continued living as if nothing was wrong. People always imagined disasters as thunder, loud, terrifying, impossible to ignore. But the truth is far more unsettling. The most powerful disasters come like a whisper, a small, thin crack at first, too small for most people to notice, yet just strong enough to grow with time. In 2008, the world witnessed chaos in broad daylight. Banks collapsed live on television. People rushed to withdraw their life savings. Markets crashed within hours. Every screen showed the same words: crisis, collapse, panic. It was a storm the whole world felt instantly. But 2026 is something else entirely. There are no loud alarms this time, no sudden flash of danger, no one screaming on the news. Everything looks normal on the surface. Stores open, people working, markets moving, life going on. Yet beneath that calm surface, something massive is shifting. For more than a decade, the global economy has been stretched thin, pulled further and further by debt, pressure, and unrealistic expectations. Low interest rates created a world where borrowing felt harmless. People took loans like it was nothing. Governments spent money like consequences didn't exist. Corporations expanded even when profits didn't support their growth. What looked like economic stability was actually a slow building pressure, a bubble expanding inch by inch. Debt kept growing, quietly, invisibly. Inflation wasn't defeated. It simply settled into the background like a shadow. And the financial system, which appeared strong, modern, and unbreakable, was slowly eroding from within. By the mid-2020s, the world was standing on a silent fault line, not the kind that splits violently, but the kind that shifts subtly, a millimeter today, another tomorrow, until one day the entire structure collapses under its own weight. 2026 isn't coming like a crash. It's coming like a rising tide, a tide that moves slowly at first, so slowly that people don't feel it climbing. But by the time they notice, the water's already at their chest. This isn't the beginning of a sudden crisis. It's the continuation of a long one. A crisis that has been forming quietly for years, in silence. To understand the storm approaching in 2026, we must look backward, not just a few years, but centuries into the past. Because every collapse, whether it was Rome, the Great Depression, or 2008, followed the same invisible pattern. A pattern built on confidence, then overconfidence, then denial. The Roman Empire didn't fall overnight. It didn't collapse in a single battle. It fell slowly, starting with the weakening of its currency, then rising debt, then the slow erosion of trust among its people. By the time they realized the damage, it was already too late. Centuries later, industrial nations repeated the same mistakes. Factories expanded on credit. Banks loaned money they didn't have. People borrowed more than they could repay. Everyone believed growth was limitless. And then came 2008, a perfect example of collective denial. Banks knew the risks, experts warned about the bubble, but the world ignored the signs because profits were high, markets looked healthy, and everyone wanted the good times to continue. Today, the pattern is repeating. Except now, it's global. Every major economy is connected, tied through trade, technology, debt, and dependency. One collapse doesn't stay in one country anymore. It spreads fast across oceans, markets, and industries. And beneath this interconnected system, the warning signs are louder than ever. Global debt has crossed levels never seen in human history. Nations owe more than they can ever repay. Corporations are drowning in loans. Families are living paycheck to paycheck. Inflation never truly disappeared. It just hid behind temporary numbers, quietly eating away at savings and salaries. Bubbles have grown everywhere, housing prices rising faster than incomes. Tech companies valued more by hype than reality. Crypto markets swinging wildly on speculation, banks are quietly absorbing losses that they don't reveal publicly. Their balance sheets look stable, but stability is an illusion built on fragile assumptions. Governments continue printing money, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. This isn't fear. This isn't a conspiracy. This is simple, brutal math. A system that expands beyond its limits will eventually snap. 2026 isn't a prediction pulled out of thin air. It's the year where long-term pressure meets short-term reality. The year where debts collide with slowing growth. The year where whispers finally become noise. It's the logical conclusion of a system stretched past its breaking point. When the silent crash begins, it won't feel dramatic at first. It won't look like the crisis people imagine. It won't be one big explosion. It will be 1,000 small cracks. A company defaults here. Another delays payments there. A bank tightens lending. Interests quietly rise. Mortgage payments become heavier. Food prices creep upward again. People won't panic immediately because slow disasters never create instant fear. They create confusion. They create uncertainty. They create a quiet ache in society. Families will feel the pressure before anyone else. Bills stacking higher. Savings losing value. Jobs becoming harder to find. Opportunities shrinking slowly month after month. Then as the pressure spreads, the dominoes begin to fall. Highly indebted corporations collapse first, the ones that survived only through constant borrowing. Banks lose confidence and restrict credit. Businesses can't get loans. Governments rush to respond, announcing emergency measures. Temporary fixes for long-term problems. And one day, the world realizes something painful and undeniable. This was never a sudden crash. It was years of small mistakes. Years of warnings ignored. Years of signs dismissed. But in every crisis, something important happens. Clarity. 2026 becomes a reset point, a moment where humanity steps back and asks, what went wrong? What can we build better? How do we prevent this again? Nations will rethink their systems. Banks will tighten their structures. People will rediscover discipline and responsibility. Communities will grow stronger because hardship always brings people together. And despite the pain, a new foundation begins to form. Stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The story ends with a truth. The past warned us. The signs were always there. Now the future depends on who chooses to learn and who chooses to listen.